Welcome to the Creature Cast, the official console creatures podcast. I'm your host today, Steve Vegvari. Alongside me, friend of the show, first time guest, Meghan Wurstpersonshooter.
That's right. I might not be the first, but I am most definitely the worst. And I am very thrilled to be a part of this show today. Thank you for
Heck
having
yeah.
me.
No, thanks for joining in. Yeah, right off the rip, how are things? How are things going?
They're glorious.
Yeah.
Today it's not too hot, not too cold. There's a lot of blooming happening out in the world. I'm enjoying the smells, the sights, the sads are disappearing. So, it's looking up over here.
It's looking up. The stats are disappearing. Absolutely. And yeah, thank everyone for tuning in. This is a very exciting and special one. Definitely not talking about games, but games adjacent content
Mm-hmm.
over here. It's the
Mm-hmm.
Until Dawn review and spoiler cast. Yes, that is correct. We're going to be talking full spoilers down the road. It's an exciting thing. I mean, it's a PlayStation Studios film adaptation. And yeah, I had to get you involved because one, I know you're team spooky just like me.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All day, every day.
all
Every day's
day.
Halloween if you believe it enough.
I close my eyes and I believe it.
Sure.
So much so I put ink on my skin just to make myself
Truly.
believe.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. But no, I've always really appreciated the fact that you have a deep well of knowledge for horror films,
Mhm.
everything spooky,
Mhm.
Halloween, everything like that. But then
Mhm.
also I know that you do like and appreciate the Until Dawn game as well.
I do.
And yeah, knowing that, we've both seen it,
Mhm.
I thought, hey, why not put something together, talk about it? I think it's an exciting little
Yeah.
opportunity. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, all things horror, all things spooky, that's my wheelhouse, so let's get
totally.
it
I
done.
I see a little Mikey back there in your
Mr. Mike
background. I see a
Michael
little
Myers? Yeah.
Mikael.
Yeah, from, the Retro Realms,
Yep,
Halloween,
yep.
this little guy came in there. My son, he is home, so he sits there and he gets to watch me work.
And just make sure, nothing goes afoot. He's guarding the
Absolutely.
place.
He's
Yeah,
guarding me. Yeah, absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah.
The silent guardian.
That's true, yes.
Yeah. So first off, we're gonna do some spoiler-free
Mhm.
impressions and a little bit of a review here. Megan, I'm gonna throw it over to you. I want to get you on the horn here.
Mhm.
Yeah, like top level, super top level. Like, what did you think of Until Dawn?
I thought, it was a lot of fun. Like, I didn't go in with a whole lot of expectations because really and truly, it felt like a fever dream that this was still happening.
Mhm.
A lot of the time when they announce, video games or comics-based, movies coming out, I don't believe it until I see it. So going into it, it was kind of surreal in that essence, but, I had fun watching it. It's kinda like what I refer to as like a beach horror where don't look too much into it, don't look for a deeper meaning, just kinda go in and enjoy it for, the gore, the scares, the jump scares, and just I had fun watching it. I know some people might disagree with that. I know a lot of people were disappointed, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, I'm the exact same way. I didn't have too much expectations because again, it's a video game adaptation,
Mhm.
especially coming from PlayStation and Sony Pictures. They're a little, in my opinion, hit or miss. I mean, I liked Uncharted for what it was. Gran Turismo was great,
Mhm.
but then we've seen them all.
Yep.
They're few and far between that I come out. I'm like, wow, that was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Until Dawn as a film adaptation was a little bit weird because
Mhm.
the Until Dawn game is almost filmic in so many
Yes.
ways. I mean, it does have legitimate film actors in it. So
Mhm.
it was a bit of a weird one, but
Mhm.
knowing where we were when the remake got announced and
Mhm.
released, I was like, oh, it kind of does feel like PlayStation has this sense of urgency to revisit the IP,
Mhm.
kind of do
Mhm.
something new with it,
Mhm.
and what better way than to build a mass audience or hopefully a mass audience by
Yeah.
bringing adaptation to theaters. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I had very little or like no set expectations, but I walked away and this was just an absolute blast in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Like you're sitting there with your popcorn,
Mhm.
your Coke Zero if you're me, and you're just sipping away, you're having a lot of fun.
Mhm.
It's directed by David F. Sandberg, which, if people know, did direct Annabelle Creation. So he
Mhm.
does have
Mhm.
some DNA within the horror genre. He also did both Shazam films, which I'm not too huge on.
No.
His filmography is a little spotty in my opinion. But that being said, I was a little optimistic knowing that he had his big start
Mhm.
in horror.
In
So
horror. Yeah.
to come back to it, I was optimistic, and I walked away. I was like, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, The cast itself, really no big names here. You got Ella Rubin, Michael Camino, Odessa Zion, Ji Young Yu, Maya Mitchell, and then of course the man Peter Stormare
Mhm.
reprising his role. Hold on, but I guess he's the biggest name out of the bunch.
Mhm.
But other than that, it just feels like a bunch of younger actors jumping
Mhm.
in, having a lot of fun. Like you said, the scares are there,
Mhm.
the gore is there, the gore factor is certainly there.
It really is.
And yeah, I think again, I put this out on social media before, but this is the most like cabin in the woods light movie I think I've seen in a very, very long
Mhm.
time, where it
Mhm.
feels like you're going through a whole bunch of like horror vignettes
Mhm.
in so many ways, and they're all loosely inspired by things I've seen before.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
I kinda like that.
if you enjoy the genre, then you're gonna appreciate the callbacks, right? I mean,
Yes.
it does a lot to, pay tribute to the game, but at the same time, like, it kinda knows that it's not the game, and it wants to really bring in the people who would appreciate those little Easter eggs.
Right. Well, I guess that's a great kinda segue here because, yeah, we're using the word adaptation kind of
Mhm.
fast and loose, and I kinda wanna know your perspective because you were talking about people who might be disappointed.
Mhm.
Coming into this, what are your opinions and thoughts on how they, quote, unquote, "adapted Until Dawn"? Without spoilers.
Of course. Oh, man, a challenge.
I know, tiptoe around it.
Tiptoe. No, I mean, I think with it being the game itself being QuickTime,
Mhm.
QTEs, it's kind of hard to translate that into a medium where you're not participating.
Right.
So, I mean, based on what they did, I think that's what you could do. I think
Mhm.
anything else kind of wouldn't do it justice. So, I mean, I yeah, it's hard to say without going into too much detail about, the premise and, like, how it works, but, I think they rolled with what they could, and I liked it for that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm,
I mean, giving a very top level synopsis on the movie, you have Clover, the final girl in so many ways, the main character, and her friends going to this location, this isolated location to look for her missing sister. And that the way that they kind of take inspirations from Until Dawn kind of without spoiling anything, are very surface level in a lot of
mhm,
ways at
mhm,
first. The entire premise is once they arrive at this location, they essentially get caught in this time loop, almost like Groundhog's Day, where in the name they have to survive until dawn or they can't escape this nightmare. So it is a very big departure from the game. You're not dealing with the Blackwood characters,
mhm, mhm,
aside from Peter Stormare, who's in the film. So yeah, they're taking loose threads, settings adjacent, to
mhm,
really kind of craft out their own little plot here. But
mhm.
yeah, it is a movie that you can't really talk about all that much without spoilers,
It's true.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So why don't we just get into it?
absolutely.
Before we do you recommend people go and see this movie in theaters, or do you kind of recommend people wait?
I think if you're gonna go see it in theaters, go with a group of friends. I think that
Yes,
makes it a lot of fun.
it does.
I think if it's like 1 or 2 people, you might not get, the full, what it was meant to be, what it was gonna show you. But I think if you have a couple friends that, either play the game or didn't, like going in blind, I think that
Yeah.
would be a lot of fun, just kind of without expectation too, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm,
No, I agree with that. I think it really does depend on the energy in the
mhm,
theater. I think if
mhm,
you're there to have some fun with friends, or the energy in the crowd is a lot of fun.
mhm.
I've said it before, but there's one scene in particular that I just think is so outlandishly fun and exciting for
Mhm.
like even the entire premise itself and the expectations going into it. I was like, you could tell me this to my face, and I still wouldn't believe that this
Yeah.
actually happens in the movie the way
Right.
that it does.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm,
think that moment alone is worth the price of admission in
mhm.
so many ways because it's so fresh and unique and unexpected. But I think, yeah, if you're a fan of Until Dawn, I don't know if you have to go see this to
Yeah.
really appreciate anything,
Mhm,
or vice versa. If you have never played Until Dawn, you you're not really missing out on all too
mhm.
much if you go and see this and just kind of
Yeah.
take it in as what it is. So
Mhm. Yep.
I don't think that there's an inherent need to go see it in theaters. I do think that it is an adaptation worth watching at some
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, with all that said, I give all of you guys at home full warning. We're going to jump right into spoilers. If you care about spoilers for Until Dawn, the movie, definitely click off, press pause on this, come back when you have seen it, whether in theaters or at home, and then come back because we got thoughts. We got a lot of thoughts.
We
So
got thoughts.
this is your warning and full spoilers.
No.
Megan, jump into it. Like, talk to me here. What did you think of like some of the? I really want to know your because of your expertise in this.
Oh, okay.
your read on the kind of horror, because it's not foreboding. It is very much like jump scare horror. It is very much like build the tension, execute on it, build the tension, execute on it. I want to hear your thoughts on like the spookiness of Until Dawn.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is one part of the movie that I found to be extremely spooky, and it was kind of like the found footagey sort of part where they were.
Yes.
I mean, we're jumping ahead further into the movie at this point, but it's when they're going through the cell phone and they're seeing all the videos of the previous nights, and it just really harkened back to like like a Blair Witch, like a Paranormal Activity, just like it really felt very scary in that moment, and I actually jumped out of my seat. There was one scene where one of the masks is sitting in a doorway, and it kind of like turns into this giant creature that sort of lunges towards them, the camera, and that got me. And I don't jump scare that much, but I mean that I found that to be particularly scary. The rest of the film, there is like a little bit of a dread. There's like a mystery happening of like how are they going to get out of this. But as far as spooky goes, I don't think it's overly spooky. Like I wasn't terrifically scared by anything that was happening in there. It's just like kind of it's like Cabin in the Woods, like you said. It's doesn't really take itself too seriously, which makes it a lot of fun to watch. But if you're going in there looking to be scared, I don't think you'll be terrifically scared by it.
No, and I think that's all evident in the character Abe, who's just like riffing on one-liners the entire time. He's just a big doofus. It really does bring a sense of levity to it. But to your point, I think because they're mixing and matching all these different kind of pieces of inspiration from horror, whether or not, it's stuff like almost like The Ring in a certain way, or even Evil Dead, or just slashers and stuff like that, AD slashers. I think that you do get a little bit of every kind of flavor of horror in this movie, and I think depending on what your preference of horror is, you can kind of take that away, and I think it's a lot of fun to just watch and kind of appreciate from that lens.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I guess because you're talking about not having that many jump scares and stuff like that, was there anything in particular that you thought kind of dragged the moments down from a tension perspective?
The pacing is very good, I thought, in this film. There wasn't a lot
Crisp
of
90 minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
You're
we love to be in and out.
Yeah.
It's so good. I have the rest of the day ahead of you. But no, I mean, I don't think anything dragged it down terrifically. I mean, I think it did a very good job setting up kind of like, oh, what's happening? Like, where's the sister? How are we going to find her? To getting to the town, to then locking themselves in the house and, unraveling the secrets of this town that used to be here. But I mean, as soon as you start getting into like the mayhem that is Until Dawn, that is, surviving the nights, I think it moves so rapidly. You don't have kind of a chance to sort of catch your breath in it.
Yeah. So with that, do you think that it did a good job of kind of setting up its quote unquote like lore? Like when you get to Glore Valley and you're in the welcome, the guest shop or whatever, and there is a lot of exposition and kind of universe building, and you write the name in the guest book, the hourglass turns every night and everything. It does take a couple cycles of this time loop to really kind of understand exactly what's going on. Do you think that kind of read well for a film that is moving at that caliber?
Sort of. I kind of left feeling like I didn't fully understand the how it worked, like what the rules were of the universe, you know, like what is this giant hourglass that keeps spinning? Like how does it know? You know what I mean? Like what triggers
Totally.
it? What obviously them dying in the end restarts it, but what is the cause of that? You know, I felt like there was a little bit of just sort of it doesn't bring everything to the surface, which is kind of nice because then you're sort of in the world with them and you don't really understand what's going on. But again, that is sort of that beach horror feel where like they're not going to give you everything. They're going to
No.
make you kind of think on it yourself. You're just here for the ride. Like if they're not going to go too deep into it. And I think because it's kind of Until Dawn adjacent, like the game, that there isn't too much you can do for that, because even Until Dawn, I feel like we don't understand all the rules in the game.
That's so true. Yeah. I think that's kind of the most frustrating part is you brought it up, the what really kicked things off,
Mhm,
because there's the moment, was it Nina, she writes her name in the guest book, and then the hourglass
mhm,
starts turning. And I
mhm,
was like, oh, okay, so it does really rely on someone writing their name. But then later on, we find out that it really does all revolve around Clover.
mhm,
Everything's kind of like all the scares and everything are inspired by her mental
mhm,
health and her
mhm.
struggles with mental health after what happened to her and everything. So I kind of felt like I was getting like juxtaposed answers. And
Yeah.
again, to your point, maybe I shouldn't really even be looking into it all that much to begin
Mhm,
with.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but yeah, it left me with a little bit of questions, and then Megan as well. The
Mm.
character, not you, the Megan in the movie.
That's right, yeah,
um,
that's right, don't get it twisted, it's
yeah,
not
where I was
me.
like, so we're just led to believe like she is a medium of some sort, like
Yeah.
has these psychic
Because they
powers.
sort of alluded to it in the beginning when they're kinda doing, like, these prayer circles at these
Yeah,
locations, like, she's saying, you know, like, "It feels really good to complete this," like, based on her feelings and things like that, so you kind of get a little bit of an introduction to that. It's kind of weird to sort of throw that in there and then not really have it go
super.
anywhere, you know? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
so
like, she has the moment where, she gets
Mhm,
possessed and then,
mhm,
starts talking about, future things of like, don't let it in, let the entity in and everything.
mhm.
And then later on, when they're in the basement, she kind of like, taps the desk, and that's where the map is and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, so again, we're
Yeah.
getting like juxtaposed answers here. Is it like
Mhm,
was it the possession that
mhm.
really I don't know.
Yeah, it almost could have not had that, you know? Like, they
Totally.
could have just had her be possessed by something, and that would have been believable, and they could have just had them open a drawer, and there would have been the nap, you know what I mean? It felt like
Yeah,
a lot for nothing, you
exactly.
know?
Because by
Yeah.
the end of the movie, it really didn't
It didn't pay off.
pay off
No.
in the final conflict or
Mm-mm.
anything, yeah.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, I was very curious about your perspective of that because yeah, there is a lot of set dressing in the first
Mhm.
15-20 minutes, but a lot
Yeah.
of it is kind of just, hey, this is all the information. You better believe it and take it with you for
Yeah,
along the ride. Yeah.
that's right,
But
yeah.
but I do agree that once we get probably towards the second loop, that's when things kinda, like, start popping off. You get the
Yeah.
witch sequence, which is super
Oh, yeah.
spooky. You
Yeah.
put an old lady, in a
Old
in a
people be
house.
spooky.
Their
Yeah.
old people be spooky,
That's
and they're spooking me.
They are. Yes, they are. They're
Yeah.
scaring me.
Yeah, they're scaring me, and, yeah, and then, of course, you get the 3rd loop in the bathroom,
Mhm.
and that whole sequence of them sipping the water and exploding is downright
Just because there's nothing that leads you to believe that any of this is happening. There's no
no.
setup for it. There's no, like, little spoilers in the beginning to be like, "If you're paying attention, you'll notice this." They just start blowing up.
There's no foreshadowing
No.
aside from, yeah, Megan, like, opening the taps the first loop or whatever
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
having water, and
Yeah.
then them having access to water,
Mhm.
and then Abe just starting to, vomit up mucus, and I was
Mhm.
like, "Cool, that's going to be, like, a long con of, like, his insides are slowly going to degrade,
Mhm.
um, awesome, it's gonna be, like, a really subtle thing," and within 30 seconds, the man explodes on screen in the most violent way.
Yeah, and, like, to your point before about, games, that it's throwing back to previous horror movies, it was very, Ready or Not for me, like,
Yes.
that just, it just was paying so much homage to these other movies and just bringing this in, and I really appreciate that scene because, like you said, you don't really see that very much in screens where people just explode. So it was fun to kind of watch them all sort of one by one.
And I think that's the best part is that it just wasn't an isolated incident. Like, it lets you sit in that moment for a brief second, and then it just goes, Nina goes, Megan's leg just explodes before her stomach explodes.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going and going to the point where again, knowing that it doesn't take itself too seriously, I think plays really well in the fact that it's so absurd to watch these characters just explode. And then down the line, you get the sequence of Max, doing it to himself just for no reason.
Yeah, well, they got to start the loop over again, so
well,
everybody's gonna die.
But he does it in such an aggressive way.
I know.
Yeah. It was just a lot of fun, and that's the sequence I feel like is just worth the price of admission if you're with the right people, all having fun, kind of on board with like, let's just not take this too seriously, but at face value, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's the fun and games portion of the movie.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
And then we get the Wendigos.
And
I feel like
representation of Wendigos in this movie.
You think so? Yeah.
Yeah, like it's fun because, throwing it back again to horror, like, media and things. I think a lot of people are used to seeing Wendigos a la Hannibal, right? So you get like the deer head and the horns and stuff like that. So it was kind of fun to see them more as like kind of ghoul characters rather than these big beasts made of flesh and bone.
Yeah, they were almost kind of zombie-ish.
Yeah.
Where they're kind of like feral creatures. They're devoid of humanity. They are people who have, survived or gone through these loops so many times that they lose their humanity. They're instilled with so much fear and anxiety, just like your boy over here, that, they kind of just become these Wendigos, or at least that's what we're led to believe. And I think they play around with that concept in interesting ways. I think just the progression of these characters going through these loops, that's already an interesting thing. But one of my favorite sequences, and I mean this, in all truth, is when Clover is in the tunnels and you get the red flashing light, and how they play around with the ability to see them, and like they're crawling up, they're crawling back, and you just hear the footsteps and everything like that. I think it's just so cool.
Yes. Oh, it was, and that's one of the most unsettling parts. I think that is very, very well executed, because it reminds me a little bit too of Lights Out, and where the lights flickering and the creatures getting closer and closer and closer. It's just, there's so much dread involved with that because you're not quite sure where they're going to pop up next.
No, exactly. And I mean, you bring it up. That's another David F. Sandberg movie. That's his first movie. So definitely taking a little bit of inspiration there and kind of bringing it over and kind of riffing on it, which is a lot of fun. Why don't we talk about the elephant in the room?
Okay.
Which is this being an Until Dawn movie. And I guess I'm going to even warn the audience again some more. This is like deep spoilers now. We're going to be talking about the spoilers of the universe, I guess, because I really do want to talk about what this means for Until Dawn. We're talking about, there being the remake. We're talking about, Supermassive maybe setting up future content. So I want to know, like, once we get towards the end and, you have Dr. Hill there really kind of now setting up that this isn't just a loose adaptation that we're working with. This plays into Until Dawn, the game, as well, in a way.
Yeah. Prequel,
how do you read all this?
It just makes it feel like that it's constantly happening places.
Okay.
Like there is always someone experiencing this, whether it's still Dr. Hill or if he's like another sort of, person in another body. Like, is it like an entity that's controlling all these things that's making this happen? But right at the end of the film, when you see the TVs sort of turn back on, and it's essentially the game. I just think it's cool that, like, you're like, oh, this just keeps happening to people and it's not going to stop. So it's an interesting thing, because again, how do you make a movie based on a QuickTime event game? right? That's like kind of a movie in itself. So it's interesting to be like, oh no, this will keep happening, whether or not the people survive until dawn. Like the next night, it'll be someone else, and the next night, it'll be someone else. So
Right.
I think that's interesting if they were to then play with the characters who maybe survive until like the game,
Mm,
and then what their lives look like going forward from there.
yeah.
But it's interesting too that in the movie they all have to survive, but in the game it doesn't matter.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, you are talking about the difference of playing through a game that relies
Mhm,
on quick time events and then kind of adapting that, the
mhm,
struggles and how do
mhm,
you do that? And to your point, you're talking about the movie and having the rules of everyone has to survive. Well, at least they do say that one person has to die.
yes.
That's kind of
Yeah.
that is the rule as far as, Hill tells the audience. It's like
Mhm,
one person has to die and everyone else can leave. But I do like the fact that it almost plays as in like a player trying to do like the perfect run of like, no, I'm
mhm.
getting all 5 characters through the
Yes.
storyline. I want the
Yeah.
perfect ending to this game. That's kind of how I read the movie being at
Mhm,
least.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but no, I think it's super interesting that the more I think about it, the more I'm almost convinced that this is a prequel
Yeah,
to the
that's what I
game.
think. Mhm,
You do see Joshua's file on the table as
mhm,
well in Hill's office, and then yeah, we get the cut to Blackwood as the characters in the game are pulling up and then kind of
yeah.
kickstarting that and everything.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
I'm really interested now, to think about this larger universe. You have the
mhm,
inpatient video game, you have Until
mhm.
Dawn, you have Until Dawn remake, which we briefly talked about this before, but you have not
Not yet. No.
played. So you don't
The
okay.
I don't know it yet. The Battle of the Backlog, it's intense some days,
It's
and
super intense. I mean,
yeah,
there's a video game coming out every gosh darn day.
every
Um,
day.
but
But
without
yeah.
saying anything explicitly, I do think
Mhm.
that at least PlayStation has the intention of building off of this
Yeah.
because they they did add more content to it to imply that the universe is expanding.
Mhm.
Now we have the movie. I'm kind of curious how this is all going to play out. If
Mhm.
the intention is now, yeah, to your point, do we get a movie that is just Until Dawn with
Mhm.
like with new actors playing the characters we
Yeah.
know? Like I don't think Rami Malek's going to be
Well,
free or cheap enough to come and
who
do
knows?
this.
Who
Yeah,
knows? Maybe he'll just do it because he just loves the project, you
he
know?
loves Until Dawn.
Yeah, we can only hope.
We can only hope.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do wonder if we're going to get a recast for some of these characters, or
Mm,
if it's going to be, hey, we're building out the universe. The game is still canon, and to your
mm,
point, yeah, what you said, maybe we're going to
mhm,
get a sequel in the form of a movie, form
mhm,
of a game, build it
mhm.
out all these different ways. How
Yeah.
would you like to see this continue?
I think it would be super interesting if they were to then make the sequel be the actual game, but
Hmm.
do it in the form of the Clue movie from like the 80s, where
Okay.
there's like 4 different endings depending on who did it with what weapon. So like maybe you go to the theater and it's like one ending, and then like in another city it's another ending, you know? Kind of like the Black Mirror episode where they were like, "Oh, there's 2 different episodes, but which one are you watching?" You know
Oh
what I
my
mean? So,
God,
like,
yeah.
you're never
Just
quite sure.
gaslight me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that would be kind of fun to, like, play more into, like, not everyone can survive the night.
Right. Yeah.
But, I mean, it would be interesting to kind of see these characters from both the movie and the game interact in some way too, like, whether it be, like, a third down the line if it's, like, a sequel game or a sequel movie
Mhm.
that uses both the characters. I just think that would be kinda cool to, like, even just a quick one, because even when you see Rami Malek's picture for, like, a millisecond in the
Yeah.
movie, I was like, "Oh,
Hell yeah.
yeah."
It matters. It
It
matters.
matters.
Yeah, exactly. No, that and I like that stuff. I
Yeah.
like the fact that, well, one, it wasn't just a throwaway thing, like, it was
Yeah.
very purposeful. It wasn't just
Mhm.
an Easter egg to be like, "Oh, yeah, in the back, you see, you know, a Blackwood sign," or something
That's
like
right,
that.
yeah,
Like, they're
yeah.
very much implying that this is all tied together, it's all
Mm,
very important,
mhm.
and it's not just some sort of, like, multiversal thing,
Right,
with
yeah.
Ace being kind of, yeah, this
Mhm, mhm.
overseer of all the puppet master.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I wish that more people might go out and see this so
Mhm, mhm,
the universe would continue to expand, because Until
mhm.
Dawn is one of my favorite PlayStation
Oh,
games. I
absolutely.
love what
Yeah.
Supermassive did with it. I think it's a
Mhm,
very cool take on horror and
mhm,
storytelling in that way, and the butterfly effects in that game are just
So cool.
absolutely unreal. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a fun idea and it feels fresh, right? Like, I mean, even playing the rest of the Dark Pictures anthology games, I mean, it never feels like you're quite doing the same thing, even though it is really the same thing over and over again. You're just kind
Right.
of watching a story play out and you're sort of participating. I don't know. It's a really fun narrative storytelling compelling moment. So
No, exactly. And I
yeah.
think you can have so much fun with this kind of style because,
Mhm,
yeah, Until Dawn is this hodgepodge of horror elements that you
mhm,
could
mhm.
really take inspiration from almost anything and kind of
Yeah,
put it
yeah.
together and make it work in X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it.
Well, Megan, was there anything we didn't talk about? Anything that you've been, sitting on the edge of your seat to bring up?
No, we really hit a lot of it. Like,
Yeah.
my big thing was, like, to talk about how much it reminded me of other horror movies. Like, sitting after
Please.
having seen it on the weekend and then thinking about it
Yeah.
as the days progress, being like, "Oh, but this. Oh, but this," just like I feel like it is something that if you sit on this movie for a bit, you'll find you maybe like it a little bit more. I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna keep defending it. I like it was fun. I just had fun watching it, and
Yeah.
because I'm very much into like the Cabin in the Woods, like dark comedy horror movies. Like those just a fun time, and you need to be able to laugh at these things, right?
You
Because
really do, and they want
yeah,
you to as well. I
yeah,
mean, there's the whole part where, Abe, pulls up his shirt to show his spine and, the Wendigo little spine the little, spine
yeah.
things are and then Nina's like, "Nah, it's good."
No, it's fine. You're fine.
"Yeah, you're fine."
No, no, don't worry about it. Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I felt
clearly it's not even funny because of like, an unintentional line delivery. They're
yeah,
playing it off as
yeah,
this is a funny moment, so I
yeah. They are. Yeah.
I I think that they know what they're doing.
Yeah, it was a shame too. I found myself laughing at a lot of these, like, because you're so uncomfortable and you're like on the edge of your seat, and then these funny things happen, and you're kind of laughing as like a weird response. But I felt like my theater was very quiet during these
Yeah.
parts, and I don't know. I thought it was fun, and it did what it set out to do,
Yep.
and I think more people should go see it in theaters. I think it would be a good time with
I think
friends.
so too.
Mhm,
Yeah, I think if we're gonna summarize anything, I think that you should at least give it a shot. I think that
mhm,
there's a lot here to
mhm.
appreciate, and
Yeah,
I can understand the trepidations of being like, well, it's not an adaptation,
mhm,
or if you're thinking that it will be an adaptation, you might be let down either way. But I
yeah,
think the things that they do to justify its existence warrants a ticket price or at least a
mhm.
view
Yeah,
sometime down the line.
yeah.
I don't think that anything in this movie is like offensively bad. I even some of the weaker line deliveries and everything don't really bring it all down for
No.
me.
It kind of plays into the movie itself, right? Like, I think it's all
Exactly.
worthwhile. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you have Peter Stormare as the villain,
Yeah.
as the foreboding villain in this, you really can't take it all that seriously. Of like,
No.
well, this isn't going to win Oscars, so I don't want to see it.
That's right, that's right. Just have fun with it, like,
Have fun.
don't be thinking it's gonna be some groundbreaking thing. It's Until Dawn the movie, it's great.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Uh, well, Megan, thank you so much for
Yeah,
taking the time out of your day,
of
talking to me here,
course.
waxing poetic about the Until Dawn, the movie.
Absolutely. Anytime. This was a lot of fun.
It
I
was.
love talking horror and games and movies, so
Perfect,
yeah.
perfect. We'll definitely have to get you back on the show
Sure.
down the road,
Yeah.
but until then, if people want to connect with you online, where could they do so?
I'm Wurstpersonshooter with a U on most places. Sometimes the name is too long, so we gotta cut out some of those vowels in there,
You don't need
but
them.
yeah, you don't need them. What do you need them for? But
Nothing.
yeah, Wurstpersonshooter most places. I'm most active on Instagram. Thinking about getting back into streaming soon, maybe. So who knows? You heard it here
Huge.
first, folks.
Huge. Well,
Breaking news.
we already got you in the office, so
That's right, that's right.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm on Threads sometimes, but yeah, Instagram's the
You're
place
threading.
to I'm threading the line. But
Perfect.
Instagram's where I'm most active.
Amazing. And you can
Mhm,
find me across the internet at svikvari. We appreciate you all
mhm,
for tuning in, watching, listening. We also have a great discussion about Bobby and I's time with the Nintendo Switch 2 to go check out. That
mhm,
episode is live now, so we appreciate you if you head on over there, give that episode some support, listen to us talk about all the games we played.
mhm.
And yeah, until next time, we'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye.